Hello, hello, people of the internet. Steve Persh here, streaming in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Today on the live stream, we're looking at Pantheon's front-end site, our relatively new offering for running front-end frameworks under the same roof, the roof of Pantheon, as your WordPress or your Drupal CMS. A lot of what you'll see today here, really everything you'll see here today, you can try out for free on Pantheon for all the CMS stuff we'll show today. You can just sign up for an account on Pantheon. Our front-end site's offering is still behind a feature flag, so you do need to talk to us to get access there. And mostly today, we'll be looking at the high-level content workflows that you can arrange as you shift your architecture between a traditional CMS towards perhaps a Jamstack architecture, a server-side rendering of a front-end framework, reading from a CMS. There are big changes that can happen that will affect how your developers and your content editors work together to get changes out the door. If you've got any questions, you can drop them in the chat at any time. We'll keep it conversational. And speaking of conversational, I'd like to bring in another Pantheor, so I'm not just talking to myself. Yulia, welcome to the stream here. Yulia from our content team. How you doing?
Yeah, hi, Steve. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Yulia. I'm a senior manager of content here at Pantheon. It's been a while since I was last on a live broadcast / live stream, maybe 10, 15 years.
Yeah, Yulia, I know bits and pieces about your background, which is why I thought you'd be a great person to have on the stream today to channel the perspective of the person who cares about the contents of these websites. Could you share for our audience here today what you were doing before you were at Pantheon?
Oh boy, yes, I used to be a journalist, and I was in TV news. I was writing for newspapers, if you guys remember those such a thing. And,
I do. It's been a long time.
Yeah, digital news, and I was going to share an anecdote with you because I know, Steve, you're going to introduce me to some new technology today. I remember the time when I was a journalist, and we were all caught called into a room to learn this big new thing called Facebook. And I remember that was my time working as a journalist in a newspaper. And I remember feeling so indignant, like, Facebook, what is this all about? You know, it's beneath me. I remember walking out. So if you see me walking out today.
All right. Fair enough. Yes, I do remember the Facebook getting introduced to the world, and maybe a topic for another live stream. But a lot of the way I thought about structuring websites, and particularly Drupal sites, was very Facebook inspired. The idea that there are all of these individual things. There's someone's bio on the website. It relates to this other thing. I just need interlinking all across the board. And Facebook taught me that mindset.
For sure. Well, I'm ready for the lesson today.
All right. In today's fun, we're going to be looking at the content editing workflows that are present in a traditional CMS, how those compare to code change workflows in a traditional CMS, and we'll do kind of a high-speed push through the last decade or so of web architecture changes. But from the perspective of the developer, I'll be channeling my background as a website developer, how my workflow changes, comparing that to how does the workflow of the content editor change, the person who needs to be updating headlines, posts, and whatnot. So let's get ourselves grounded with the CMS way of doing things. So I will get my screen share going here.
Let's do that.
Just 1 second.
WordPress has been my bread and butter for the last 10 to 15 years. So I'm excited to learn more.
Yeah. So we have here a WordPress site running on Pantheon. Nothing terribly special here. It's a relatively freshly installed WordPress site. I'm looking at the Pantheon dashboard. Every site on Pantheon gets a dev, test, and live environment for those Drupal and WordPress CMS sites. If I open up the dev environment here, again, I can see this is a pretty simple, brand new WordPress site. One thing I want to call out is just a few minutes ago here in this dev environment, I pushed up a change adding the debug bar plugin. One detail perhaps to be unpacked on a later stream, I added this plugin via Composer. But Yulia, you as a content editor probably don't really care about how exactly I added the plugin. The plugin is just there in the dev environment. It adds this handy dandy debugging information.
Yeah, the first screen was really clear, but now I'm getting a little confused. Keep going.
Yes, fair enough. Yes, for a lot of the web teams working on Pantheon, the Pantheon dashboard here that we're looking at right now is something that like the content editors might not ever see. They might only ever see WordPress or Drupal in the live environment. So I've opened up the live environment here. The live environment is where content changes would get made. So we could take this sample post as it exists now beforehand. Julia, I made this edit on your behalf, and I can just sense that there's something in this line here that is annoying you.
Yeah, that is a capital E there. Can you change that, Steve, please?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yes. And, some punctuation, some punctuation to go with our lorem ipsum above. All right. So I will click update there. We now have saved our draft. Cool. Hooray. This is the baseline workflow that's worked just fine for Drupal and WordPress for CMS sites for like 2 decades. Content editors make their changes in the live environment, and developers can make their changes on local machines, push them up to dev environments when necessary. You get to this sort of crucible of a test environment where you can move up your code changes, pull down your content changes, so that if the developers need to send over to a stakeholder, perhaps the content editor, hey, we've made some code changes, please review them. They're seeing those code changes intermixed with the latest content, the latest uploaded images from the live environment. So I will do this deploy now. I'll say adding debug bar plugin. All right. Now, Yulia, I sense that there's a chance here that I have lost you.
I'm going
or
to
that,
right? Yes.
or that or perhaps developers who have the responsibility of like explaining how all of this works to their content editor collaborators. Starting from just this dashboard might be overwhelming. There's a whole lot of information. There are a whole lot of tabs here. I feel like we should ground ourselves, Julia, in something simpler. Do you mind if I pull out the crayons and Legos here?
I'm going to ask you, Steve. Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. So we'll go to the crayons and Legos to talk about like just what is happening at the base level for a CMS, a typical workflow. Yeah, this has been the de facto standard for professional websites for a decade plus. You have a dev environment. This is where those developers could make their there's that test environment that we were just looking at, and then there is a live environment. And to represent us here, Julia, I did just assemble a Jurassic Park Lego set. So if you don't mind, just we'll be siblings here, because as much as developers and content editors may not work closely together, they should, in my opinion, have some kind of relationship with one another. So why not the siblings from Jurassic Park? And siblings fight sometimes. So we'll probably see that as we talk about how these architectures can evolve. So the code, I'll be the developer here in blue, pushing code from dev. My ugly arrows here to test to live. The content editors are making their changes directly in the live environment. And although the content editor probably isn't the one using those buttons in the Pantheon dashboard or the ugly shell scripts that I often used outside of Pantheon to move a database from a live environment to a test environment to a dev environment and whatnot. That is the basic flow that we have here. I want to highlight how this basic trade-off is grounded like in many ways in the world of journalism. Yulia, I'm guessing at some points you were in situations where you had to get content changes to the live website really, 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 really fast.
Yeah, things do evolve fast, and you have to act on the fly. But Steve, you know what's catching my eye here? We're moving in opposite directions. Why
yes,
not?
We are always moving in opposite directions here, and it is just a balance of trade-offs. The baseline trade-off here is that a bad code change could break the live website, and that is how I started as a young developer. Well, older than Timmy from Jurassic Park, but in perhaps still in my teens. I don't quite remember. I would just push code changes straight to the live environment. At Pantheon, we call that cowboy coding. It's a phase teenagers go through, that cowboy coding phase where they push code changes straight to the live environment. But if you push a code change that has a semicolon in the wrong place, you could break the entire website. And while like a misplaced semicolon in a single blog post is some level of bad, it's not break the entire website bad. And so the baseline expectation for most CMS sites is, yeah, we should make content edits in live because it's so important to make content changes fast, and a bad change isn't the end of the world. But a bad code change, it's near the end of the world bad. At least it's downtime bad, and so that's why code changes need these multiple steps.
I'm with
but
you.
yes, we are working in opposite directions, and it does force the team, like siblings, to have arguments sometimes about whether or not a thing is code or whether or not it's content. Like the header image on the homepage, is that content that the content editor can control? Probably yes.
That would, yeah. If
yeah, I mean,
control it, I'd be very upset.
yes, but the developer may not have a strong opinion about which image is the header image on the homepage, but I don't have a Lego to represent them. We'll bring in Dr. Alan Grant here to be the designer briefly. the designer's work who follows a similar path. The designer might think, no, the hero image on the homepage is my responsibility, and a bad or a broken hero image on the homepage is like end of the world level bad, depending on the designer you ask. And that's why such a change would need to follow this path. And like, it's a false dichotomy. This is not an argument that needs to be the end of the world for a team. And about a decade ago, maybe more now, some front-end developers started asking themselves, does it need to be this way? Could we do something simpler, better? And it rolled up kind of into what got called the jam stack, where maybe if we just get rid of this hard distinction between code. I didn't write the word content in here. That feels incomplete. I'm going to write it in. If we don't have this hard distinction between code and content, we could just intermix them. We could have just the whole website get version controlled in Git. Anytime anything changes, code or content, it doesn't matter. It's just text and images. A build process runs, and that just sends out a website, a simple, flat files website. And it's a throwback in some ways to like the 90s way of running a website. Like the thing that people are downloading out on the internet when Ian Malcolm is browsing this website, like he's just getting HTML, JavaScript images. Does it matter to Ian Malcolm whether or not what he's browsing on his phone or on his desktop is flat files behind a CDN, or if it's, you know, a complex WordPress or Drupal dynamic site? You know, not really. So if it doesn't matter to this person, the distinction between code and content, you know, maybe it shouldn't matter so much to these folks, the distinction between them. Couldn't they just work in the same direction, put all their changes in a Git repository? Anytime anything changes, you run a build process, and that makes a simple, fast, performant website. That's an architecture that appealed to a whole lot of people. Right, I'll pause there because there's a decent chance that I've lost you or anyone else watching along here.
We all want to get along for sure. And yes, the ultimate user experience is what matters, whether it's a reader, you know, the magazine, or someone's browsing, shopping on their phone. They don't want to wait, and they don't really care what's behind that screen, right?
Yeah. And, you know, and this architecture can appeal in a bunch of different ways. You know, at Pantheon, we sometimes, you know, think about like a hierarchy of needs, so to speak, of a website. And like I've done presentations with the 5-level hierarchy, you know, but sometimes we just boil it down to 3 levels of stability. I'll abbreviate here to productivity and productivity and, you know, impact. Is the website actually doing what it needs to do? And, you know, one of the reasons this architecture took off is because for many teams, this architecture satisfies all 3 of these really, really well. Like this is in some ways the most stable way to run a website. It's, depending on a lot of things, the cheapest way to run a website. So for IT directors, that's super appealing. Is it productive? Yeah, for teams that are comfortable working in this style, it can be incredibly productive to not have to worry about what's a code change, what's a content change. It's all just changes. We're just changing the website. Everything flows in one direction. And because this speed of iteration that was available in this style of working was so fast, that meant if ever your web team had a hypothesis on like, how can we make the website more impactful? You know, it's 15 minutes or less away. It's flowing through a build pipeline that should be traversable really, really fast compared to the development time that you might have with a Drupal or WordPress site, where, you know, on Pantheon, yeah, moving through these steps of dev test live, like you can do it in a small number of minutes. But many CMS teams, these steps can take much, much longer than that if they don't trust their tools. So like there really is a there with this style of working. And I just want to, you know, highlight some of the sites for which this works. So I'll go back to a screen share here, get rid of the diagram. I'll bring us both up over here. All right. So what are the situations in which this makes the most sense? Yulia, do you know how our own documentation site works?
Oh, I've heard the announcement the other week that I believe it's on front-end sites now.
Yes, yes. Our own documentation site is now running on our own front-end sites product, but it has been doing this style of development workflows for much, much longer than that. Back in 2015, even before I was a Pantheon employee, I got the email that was sent to the Pantheon Power Users group saying the Pantheon documentation is now open source. I was like, that's amazing. They're doing that cool new thing of just putting the whole website in Git. Who cares what's code, what's content? It's all just there. And because I wanted to be a part of this cool new way of making websites, I thought, I bet somewhere there's a typo that I could find and fix. And so I did.
You did.
I found that the word snippet was misspelled in the footer, and I fixed that. I submitted a pull request, and within 1 minute of me submitting the pull request on this open source repo, the pull request was merged. I was like, this is magical. It's
1 minute.
amazing. 1 minute. 1 minute between, just a Pantheon community member saying like, hey, you got a typo in your footer, to that typo officially being fixed. That was exciting to me back then.
Right now, if you ask me with my regular setup in Drupal, it might take way longer than that.
That's true. That's true. And yeah, the copying and pasting we sometimes do into a CMS can be much longer than a minute. And here in this footer, like, developers and content editors and designers could argue endlessly about where exactly is the line in the footer between, like, code snippets are additionally licensed under the MIT license. Is that content? Is that a design element? Who cares? Who cares? It's all just the footer, and you can change it together. You don't have to worry about, is this a change that moves up or is this a change that moves down? One of the ways that this got popular is that, like, it opened up a whole new style of collaborating. Even a year or two before, I was making a pull request on somebody's blog post. Jeff Eaton, prominent Drupal community member, leader in the content strategy world. I spent New Year's Eve from 2012 to 2013 fixing a typo on his blog post and submitting it as a pull request. I did go to a party after that, Julia. I don't want you to think I'm that big of a nerd.
I love it how you have all this history pulled up. You're taking us back all the way, and Jurassic Park there. That's
yeah,
really cool.
Yeah. It is the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park this year. I feel like I've got to work that into my work in more ways. But Julia, can you see where this style of working could go bad?
Yeah, I think, might not work for everyone. I don't have a GitHub account, and a lot of my colleagues may not know what GitHub is in the first place.
Yes. This tweet from Hashim Moran, product marketer and another leader in this space, has been living in my head rent-free for like 2.5 years. That a markdown-based CMS, which is what Pantheon's own docs site is, it's a perfect choice for the web developer who doesn't go to lunch with the content team. Yeah, this works really well for Pantheon's documentation site because the people responsible for the documentation also blend themselves into web developers. Like, they're writing documentation for web developers. It's reasonable to think they'll use a web developer centric tool like a markdown based CMS. But Julia, I'm guessing you don't want to use a markdown based CMS, right?
No, I just want things to be simple.
All right.
But I do want to go to lunch with you, Steve.
All right. Well, in this pandemic world, I think we've only seen each other in person once, but maybe we'll do a Zoom lunch. So I'm so glad that you said you just want it to be simple, because next I want to talk about how the web development community, and I'm just as guilty here as anyone else, thought that we could keep the simplicity of both sides, combine them together, and have something simple as a result. Like, can we keep the simplicity of WordPress for content edits and keep the architectural simplicity of the Jamstack and just like smush them together. And if the question is, can you? Absolutely, you can. Should you? Well, we'll take a look. So this WordPress site that we've been looking at has set up here a handful of plugins that are present in Pantheon's starter kit. So first, I should probably just start at the plugin level. So these starter kits that we have available include a number of helpful plugins like Pantheon Advanced Page Cache. We include in the Gatsby plugin. We didn't write this one, but it's the community way to integrate WordPress and Gatsby. We're also bringing in this WP webhooks plugin. And the basic idea here is that perhaps anytime content changes in WordPress, or perhaps when Yulia, you've decided that you're done with your content changes and you want to press a button and get your new website running, you press that button and it updates over on the Gatsby side. So like that can work. And I feel like I've got too many tabs here. So let me so this is the WordPress side of things.
WordPress environment, all right.
Yeah.
And the Pantheon dashboard.
Yes. So here we've got the Pantheon dashboard for front-end sites. Gatsby here is reading from WordPress. Anytime what am I looking for here? Anytime content is changed in WordPress, or anytime we just decide that we want to update the Gatsby build with content from WordPress, like the build process can run and pull in content from WordPress. This works. A lot of websites have been built this way in the past 5-ish years. But Yulia, there are a lot of moving pieces here. I've got a lot of tabs open.
I was going to ask, when I'm in my WordPress environment and I am writing my great American novel and I want to change something, once I make that change and I hit save in WordPress or whatever, when and where does it show up?
Yeah, so you can configure this plugin so that every time you make any content change in WordPress, Gatsby is told, hey, update yourself. In practice, I don't find that to be the best way to go. You absolutely can do it, but I'm going to jump back over to diagram land to talk a bit about why I think that's not the best way to think about things. All right, so back over in diagram land, we have the simplicity of the Jamstack, where developers and content editors could make changes in Git, trigger a build process, flat files, but our content editor may not want to be interacting with Git. We have our CMS, where our content editors are comfortable. Can we smush these things together? And like, yes, we can. We could squeeze in WordPress over here. Now our content editor is working in WordPress, our developer is working in Git, and then there's reading and writing, or there's communication back and forth between the build process and WordPress. WordPress can tell the build process, hey, go run again. When the build process is told, hey, run again, it gets the content from WordPress. But this is a lot of boxes and arrows.
As a content editor, I don't want to think about it. I just want to live in my creative la la land.
Yes. So I agree. After the years of seeing all these different ways of structuring these Lego blocks, like this can be made to work. But Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park said something along the lines of, you were so interested in whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think about whether or not you should. And there are some teams for whom this makes sense, and I think that the should bar is passed. Like one of the first customers that we worked with in this style was a bank, and for them, it made more sense culturally for them to have that clear moment in time when a button in WordPress is pushed, the build process is triggered, and that's when the live website updates. I just bought a new printer, and this style of working reminds me a lot of like I'm pressing print. Like I have a Word doc or whatever. I'm making edits in my WordPress Word doc, but I'm only choosing to press print when I've reached some kind of stopping point. And like it's up to the content editors to decide when they press print. Pharmaceuticals are there are pharmaceutical companies that did fund a lot of the exploration of these different styles of architectures. That's another industry that's very risk averse, that really wants to know, really wants tight control over what content is on the live website. And it makes sense to then explore like how can we get the best of both worlds. But for the vast majority of teams, I don't think this is the best of both worlds. I think it's not a great balance of the benefits that you're supposed to get from the Jamstack style of working and the benefits that you're supposed to get from WordPress. I feel like we're often getting a worse version on both sides for the daily experience of these two roles. And Yulia, we're nearly out of time. We could just end the live stream there.
No, I'm sure there's more.
Yes, you're right.
No.
Right there's a better way. So
there is. Let's find it.
yes. So in the year or so that front-end sites has been available to customers, and like it's been more years than that we've been exploring these styles of working, we found that a better blend is what's called server-side rendering. So if you've seen my YouTube videos, you know that I find the initialisms of web development overwhelming. But this style is SSG, static site generation. The build process here is generating a static site that sits out here, and there are benefits to that. The CMS way of running things is, by most definitions, server-side rendering. Like the live website is combining the code and the content. Anytime someone's requesting the website and the page isn't cached, the live website is server-side rendering to generate your homepage or whatnot. So can we have that, the live pulling of new content with the benefits of a cool front-end framework? And the way to do that is you have your CMS site with its, I'll really abbreviate here, with its dev, test, live, and its live environments. That's all behind, well, really each of these are behind their own CDN. And then we have our front end site. And with front end sites, you really just need a live environment, and all the other environments are kind of optional. And one of the reasons the other environments are optional with front end sites is because the impact of a bad code deployment here is just so much lower. So our content editors can be working in the live environment on WordPress or Drupal. Our code developers here are working on a front end site. I mean, in practice, they are pushing their code to Git. Git does run a very short build process and pushes out a Node.js application to a live environment or a non-live multi-dev environment. But for the general public browsing the website, they're getting requests and responses from the live site here. The live site is asking for content from WordPress or Drupal, getting it, and we have, in my opinion, a better balancing of things. I do realize that there are more boxes and arrows here, so in some ways it's just as complex. But for the day-to-day experience of these two critical roles, the content editor just needs to live inside of the CMS. They can make content updates, see those immediately. The developer can make their code tweaks, push those up through a very fast deployment pipeline, and the people visiting the website get the best possible website.
Wow. So this looks like, the two rival siblings got their own bedrooms finally, so they can
Yes.
No more one bed scenarios. All right, I like that.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's. So to see what this looks like in practice, well, I'll turn off the diagram, bring us back to screen share world, and I'm going to take us now to a Drupal site. The fact that this, I've got too many tabs open. The fact that this is Drupal instead of WordPress is kind of immaterial. This works just as well in WordPress. All right, so I'm going to edit content in Drupal, and we'll see over in the front end site that the front end site will update instantaneously. So I realize again I've got a whole bunch of tabs open. So to orient ourselves here, we're in this tab, the dashboard for the front end site. It's a Next.js server-side rendered application. It's configured to read from this March webinar Drupal environment. I configured it to read from the dev environment. I suppose in a realer version, you'd still want dev, test, and live over on the Drupal or WordPress side, and you'd probably be reading from the live environment. But for demo purposes, we'll just read from dev. So there's our Next.js example website, and Yulia, as we were getting ready here, you noticed a detail that you did not really like.
Yeah, go back to the quiche.
Yeah, the quiche.
Quiche.
All right.
Mediterranean was lowercase.
Yes. Let me see if I can find it here on the front end side of things. We'll do some tab cleanup here as well. Too many tabs. All right. On the WordPress, or sorry, on the Drupal side of things, we have our Mediterranean quiche. And yeah, you did not like the fact that this was lowercase.
Yeah. At least it's spelled correctly. That's the word I misspell every time I try.
What would we do without the red underlining?
Exactly.
All right. So we're about to save that change on our front end side of things. We have the wrong title casing. We'll save it over here in Drupal. I'll refresh over here on front end side, and hey, it's an instantaneous change. We don't have to wait for a build process. So again, while there are some web teams for whom it makes sense to decouple in a manner where over in the CMS you are clicking like, okay, rebuild, and you're only doing that every handful of content changes. That's not what I think most web teams want to do. I think most web teams would rather make their content fix and see it instantaneously. And although Quiche is exciting. I don't know if it's 3 exclamation points
I
exciting.
knew it was bothering you too. I knew it.
Well, we'll cut it down to 1. Okay, and there we go. All right. So we've we've gone a long way here since the basic CMS sites architecture, but we've, as a web development community, come back to a workflow, a day-by-day workflow for those content editors and for those developers. Looks a fair bit like what it looked like a decade ago. Although all these other models are available, there are pretty good reasons why the web development ecosystem had settled on, like, let's make sure content editors can change things as fast as possible, and let's make sure developers have 1 or more environments in which they check their work before it goes live.
Yeah, it all leads to the top of the pyramid, right? Impact. That's what
Yes.
we're all aiming for.
We ultimately just want to make the best possible websites, and we can't get there if we aren't productive. If you've got to wait 5 or 10 minutes and then go back and check that the M went from lowercase to uppercase, like that's no fun. And we've got someone in the chat here saying, amazing. I agree. I agree. Well, I suppose we're kind of at a stopping point here, but I should end with perhaps a call to action. Let me find it. I should have pre-staged this tab, but if PC3 there, if you want to try this out on your own, we've got the ability to request access here on pantheon.io/features/decoupled CMS. I might as well drop that in the chat as well here. Fill out the form here on this page if you'd like to get access to the front end sites product, and everything you saw on the CMS side, you can do just on your own with a free Pantheon account. All right, Julia, any other closing thoughts before we say bye-bye to the internet?
Invite me again.
All right. Well, I'll have you back on the stream anytime. All right. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you for demonstrating. Thank you for making difficult things easy, Steve. I wish all developers were like you.
I do what I can. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.